Welcome into Season 5. This is episode number 32 of the Outlap F1 podcast. We are part of the Ship It Studios podcast network. And tonight we've got, look at this, we've got a triple box. It's been a long time since we've had this. I think this is actually the first time in the history of the show we've had these particular combination of hosts. We've got Andy, we've got Cody, Iron Man Streak continues, and Deanna has joined us tonight. It is lovely to see you, my friend. How is everybody doing on this lovely Monday evening?
I'm doing
good.
Great. Just trying to forget about work for a few hours and go back to when times were better over the Formula One weekend, and loving it.
Yep, good to be back. Starting to recover from the 1 a.m. race time, so get back to normal.
Yeah, my circadian rhythms have been in the absolute crapper for the last, between the Singapore race, which was the early riser, and this one, which was the late night. I'm glad we actually get a week off because I can actually sleep when it's dark out. But anyway, we'll get into all that in just a little bit. You can find our show as always, Twitter, Instagram, Discord, Reddit, and of course YouTube at Outlap F1 Podcast is the handle. If you happen to be watching this on YouTube, do us a solid, click the like and subscribe button. If you like what you're hearing and you like what you're seeing, it just helps us get our content to you that much quicker. And if you happen to be on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, if you could click that 5-star review, again, it'll just help us come up a little bit better in searches. And again, help us get our content to you that much quicker. Email the show, chat now at outlapf1.com. We'll take you there. The wonderful website, www.outlapf1.com. We'll take you there. As a reminder, thank you so much to our continued monetary supporters, including Dean Warwick, Yuri Dolchester, Paul Weaver, Quentin Warden, Kevin Kelly, Regan Stanzik, Timothy Brown, and of course, Jonathan Scott. Shout out to Kevin Kelly. He was giving me some fun tips on the multi-viewer program this weekend. So thanks a lot, Kevin. Appreciate all that. You can, if you'd like to become a member of the hashtag Outlap F1 Nation, you can see our link in our show notes. It's our anchor page, $1, $5, whatever you'd like to do. All goes into making the show better, buying new equipment, upgrading the equipment we already have, investing in this platform that we're recording on tonight. So it all goes into the back end of the show. We do it for you, and we appreciate the support as always. You can take advantage of our code OUTLAP from the good folks at Manscaped. That'll get you 20% off and free shipping if you are into those types of products. And if you're so inclined, check that out. And final sponsor, our buddy Vincenzo Landino. He has his F1 shirt line, thef1guy.com. It is F1 quality merch at not necessarily the F1 quality price. So go ahead and check that out. It's good stuff, and we would highly recommend that you check that out. All right, the particulars are now out of the way, and we will start with our headline of the day. Cody, will go to you first, then D, and then I'll take the rear on this one. So, Cody, lead us off.
My headline is The Revenge Tour is real. If there was anyone who was doubting Max Verstappen's form after the Singapore Grand Prix, all of those doubters have been silenced because, holy crap, Max had a fantastic weekend. Destroyed qualifying, destroyed the race, single-handedly clinched that Constructors title for Red Bull for a second consecutive year. Not much else to say on that. I'm predicting he's probably going to win every race through the end of the year now. Yeah, it's going to be boring.
Yeah, I'm in the same vein. Back to the status quo, essentially. We had a fun weekend, and I think that may be all we get.
Yeah, my headline of the day is pretty much in line with you guys. That's pretty much what I figured. That was what we all kind of thought was going to happen. We all kind of called it the week before, and bang. I tried to do some positive affirmations all day Saturday night because that's when the race was on, and I was going, Red Bull go blow up. Red Bull going to blow up. I just kept saying, Red Bull go poof. The wrong Red Bull went poof. So I got it. It worked. Positive affirmations are real, but the wrong Red Bull went poof. All right. So we will start, as we are apt to do, with our qualifying recap. Let's see if the thing will actually do the thing. All right, look at that. All right. So going out in Q1, he did not set a lap time, and boy, did he have a bad weekend. Our American boy, Logan Sargent, feels like he needs a hug at this point. No time set in the session. P19 was Zhao Guanyu. P18, Nico Hulkenberg. P17 was Lance Stroll. P16 was Valtteri Bottas. Advancing through to Q2, but going no farther. P15 was Kevin Magnussen. P14, Esteban Ocon. P13 was Alex Albon. P12, Pierre Gasly. And P11, another good strong showing here, Liam Lawson in the AlphaTauri. The top 10 from 10 to 1. In P10, Fernando Alonso. P9, Yuki Tsunoda. Hey, local boy doing good. P8, George Russell. P7 was Lewis Hamilton. P6, no 2 race wins in a row this time, Carlos Sainz in the Ferrari. P5 was Sergio Checo Perez. P4 was Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari. P3 was Lando Norris in the McLaren. P2 was Oscar Piastri in the other McLaren. Hey, front row start for the Aussie. And in P1 with a lap time, boy, almost a half second clear of everybody else, Max Verstappen, 128.877. Wow. All right, this time we got sound twice on there. Look at that. All right, thoughts on the qualifying. D, kick us off.
I guess just starting with Logan Sargent, it's so painful. And I mean, that's 3 weekends I think in a row that it's been pretty dreadful, and contrasting that with what Liam Lawson's been able to do. And I think this was the first weekend too where James Vowles he sounded a little frustrated because they're having to take out now resources to make spare parts of what they could be using for development for next year. So it's just getting to the point where I think it's costing them too much. And then you also compare that with another rookie that we will talk about in a second that's all the way up in P2. So it's tough. He needs to not be doing the things that he's doing, and it didn't, and we'll get to it, but it doesn't get better in the race. And yeah, I just, the longer this goes on, the more likely I think they'll be getting another loan from Red Bull. So
pretty sure Andy has said a few shows now that Logan Sargent needs a hug. So it's getting worse than that now. It's painful to watch him going out in Q3 every week. I mean, Albon wasn't doing particularly well this weekend. Maybe wasn't suited well to the Williams, but Logan Sargent isn't doing himself any favors by destroying the car over and over again. It's kind of starting to look a little, I hate to say it, Latifi-esque. That's not someone you want to be associated with when it comes to keeping your Formula One car in one piece. So yeah, he's got to change something if he wants to keep that seat.
Yeah, the unfortunate shot, I felt so bad. The Williams mechanics, and they're not doing, like, the production did. That's the appropriate shot, is you go to the mechanics in that minute, but they looked so forlorn because they're like, oh great, here comes another late night, and we don't know how bad it is. And then I think it was just happenstance that Crufty goes, James Vowles is on the pit wall right in that same moment. And I'm just going, oh man, you couldn't script this any worse if you're a Logan fan, or any better if you're one who doesn't want to see him on the grid anymore, because it just seemed to pile on. But yeah, I mean, these mistakes were costly. Because he wrecked the car so bad, they tried to bring out the third chassis. That ended up even backfiring on Williams even more, because then the FIA got wind of what they were trying to do. And then so he has to start the race with, guess what? You're allowed to start, son, but now go sit on the corner here for 10 seconds and do a 10-second stop go. You're lucky they didn't get him disqualified from the event as a whole because of that. So, yuck. I don't really know what else to say. And, the kicker of it is his practice times didn't look bad. They weren't great. Williams wasn't going to do great here, but it wasn't bad. But, that snap and into the wall, and, oh, yuck. The wreck is bad, but just the way the car wrecked was even just worse.
Mm-hmm. On to a little bit of happier news. I imagine you're really excited about McLaren's qualifying performance, even if they were still about half a second short of the pole. But yeah,
this, I think, was probably the first qualifying session. Usually these are a heart attack for me. I always think something bad is going to happen. But it was just something about this weekend. I can't think, maybe back to like the 11 and the 12 years where it was, I didn't think they were not going to make Q3. Even when the track ramped up in Q1, I'm like, oh, okay, they went out and, if they put in a lap and as long as they keep the thing on the track, it was going to work. So it was a strange feeling. I really don't know how to feel about it other than, hey, they were really good. And that was awesome to watch.
Yeah, it was awesome. I was happy to see, I like Lando Norris, but it was really cool to see Piastri get the leg up on him for one qualifying here, and starting on the front row there. Didn't think he stood much of a chance when the race got going, but it was still cool to see. And other than that, what else we got in qualifying here? Charles Leclerc doing better than Sainz for a race. Lewis Hamilton doing better than Russell, which is good. I guess that hasn't happened a lot lately.
Yeah, I mean, it almost, if you take Perez out of it, it's almost a 2x2x2, lineup of kind of really where the ordering was this weekend. So you can kind of see kind of where everybody was on pace and who's upgrading and who's not.
I mean, it is touching back on McLaren again. It's just still, I don't remember the last time we saw any team get remotely close to the development curve they've had over the course of a season in season. It's just remarkable. And yeah, I mean, it's awesome. And to get a rookie up there on the front row is great. And then hopefully they just keep getting a little closer in the off season. So maybe next year is a little bit more exciting because I think a Verstappen versus Norris title fight would be
Verstappen versus both of them. Verstappen versus both of them, I think, would be amazing. And I've got my I have my slogan. So if there's a McLaren admin out there that has it, and if I see this, I'm going to get pissed because I'm going to coin it here tonight. McLaren's theme for next year is we're going to lasso that bull. That's the slogan. That's what they should go with. That they got to reel him in and lasso the bull. And we all know what bull we're talking about. So
I like it. I like how you're saying too. It's Verstappen against McLaren and not Red Bull versus McLaren.
Oh yeah, it's just the one.
Certainly not right now. All right, so we will flip over. I'll save kind of my McLaren thoughts for the podium when we actually get there. I actually have some exclusive knowledge that I gained over the course of the weekend, so I'll do some dropping of names in just a little bit. But we'll start with the back markers. Lots of non-finishers here. The non-classified DNFs are Valtteri Bottas, Sergio Perez, even though he came back out, and we'll get into all that in just a little bit. Lance Stroll, Logan Sargent, I think that was enough. Son, just go sit down for a while. And Alex Albon in the other Williams, bad weekend for them. Classified finishers in our back markers, P15, Kevin Magnussen, P14, Nico Hulkenberg, and P13, Zhao Guanyu. A couple big things we should talk about in the back markers. Cody, what would you like to start with?
Oh, probably Sergio Perez, who is the butt of many jokes right now because somehow we got a double DNF from Red Bull and Max Verstappen won the race. So that's got to be a once-in-career thing. He looked not real great pretty much from the first lap. He, I think, lost some positions there at the start. Qualified fifth, which wasn't awful, but a little bit behind, a little bit more than a little bit behind Max. And yeah, as soon as he got into, he got wing damage on the very first lap, I think, right? And then pitted, got the wing changed, and then that came to the part where he spun around the Haas of, I can't remember, was it Magnussen?
I think it was K-Mag. Yeah, it was K-Mag.
Yep.
Yeah, that pass looked like it was never going to happen. It looked reckless and clumsy and just made his day go even worse. And then retired the car, thought that was the end of things, but no. Perez is probably going to get a grid penalty for the next race since he was going to be out and can't serve the penalty that he was going to be given. So they fixed up the car just enough sent him out for a little while to serve that penalty, and then retire the car again. I heard a lot of people crying foul over that. I guess it's completely legal, although really goofy. But yeah,
It won't be
definitely
anymore,
another
but it
weekend.
was then.
Yeah, definitely another weekend to forget for Sergio Perez.
I mean, the first lap incident is excusable. Sainz moved over. Perez nowhere really to go, and he moved straight into Lewis Hamilton, and then kind of chaos ensued from there. But that one on Magnussen is maybe the most egregious incident I've seen in quite some time. And the most telling thing was when they were in that cool down room, Max saw the replay and just goes, interesting. Like, it was just the perfect moment and got a cap on that whole thing. But yeah, oh god, it's painful. It's so painful to watch. And uh, yeah, I mean, there were some highlights back in 21 when he really helped Max with that. I mean, Abu Dhabi in particular was eventful. But yeah, this is just, more performances like this, and I see Red Bull kind of doing Red Bull things and axing him and filling him with one of the 3 AlphaTauri drivers, as they announced it in a weird way.
Yeah, I guess we'll get into this here. So it was announced. What was announced? The announcement we talked about even in our preview, where it was AlphaTauri have announced Daniel Ricciardo and Yuki Tsunoda, Liam Lawson to be the reserve driver for Red Bull / AlphaTauri. It's the subsequent reporting that has come out is still kind of on the fringes, but I'm comfortable enough going with it that apparently Red Bull likes to promise seats to whoever wants to come fill them, and they have a myriad of drivers. So this doesn't make a whole ton of sense because they promised Ricciardo, they said, you can go to AlphaTauri, but we'll guarantee you a seat in F1 next year. So they had to honor that. That was one of Ricciardo's stipulations. He didn't want to just come back for half a year and then go back to going away. So they have to honor that. They've now told Liam Lawson, you are guaranteed a seat not next year, but in 2025. So, that makes life even more interesting. That's the last year of these current engine regs, the last year of the Honda branding on that car. I wonder what Yuki Tsunoda must feel like minutes after signing his contract. Oh, yeah. And now we have Sergio Perez turning into a missile on track. The move against Kevin Magnussen, like you said it, Cody, and you said it real right, Deanna, that's egregious. There is no room for that ever. That is him turning his car into a missile and deciding to take somebody out. There was no way in any universe that move ever gets pulled off ever in that hairpin. So if he wants to not be in Formula One anymore, Sergio, you're certainly showing it. What a far cry from when we all thought he might be the championship contender in Miami. Yikes.
I just think unless he has the most miraculous few races here at the end of the season and the start of next season, I don't think there's a way that Red Bull keeps them through the end of 24, being who they are and who they kind of have in the wings here. I am frustrated that Lawson doesn't have a seat. I mean, granted, they didn't know once they brought Ricciardo in that he'd get injured and that this would be a thing. But if they obviously ignore contracts anyway, so they should have let Lawson, he had these 5 races. Ricciardo will have the rest of the season. You compare their performance at that point, and then you go from there. I just don't understand really what Ricciardo has to offer at this point. That being like, I think putting in AlphaTauri is made for their young drivers, and this to develop their young drivers. So stick a young driver in that car, let them develop, and then decide who kind of goes into Red Bull from there. I just think we kind of know the story with Ricciardo, unfortunately. And maybe he can have this whole huge resurgence, but I don't know. They just invest in all of this young talent, and that's what they have done so well for so many years. So anyway, I don't know. It's my
it's an odd thing that they're doing, while in the same way flexing the power and influence that they have. And it's an odd. It doesn't make sense to me. You got this kid in Lawson who's come in and done everything that you've asked, dotted all the I's, crossed all the T's. Oh, yeah, and has scored almost as many points as a guy who's been in the car the entire year on a track that he didn't know, and goes pretty well here as well. I mean, he was the top finishing AlphaTauri. I don't know what else you're expecting. I mean, I get, Danny Rick should come in for the rest of this season, but you could have you could have swapped it. You could have just said, hey, Perez is no longer the guy. We'll buy him out. And you put Ricardo and Max, and you have that for a year, and you see if that works, and you got Lawson and Tsunoda. That, to me, at least, would align your talent base with what you think you have. But maybe I know Perez does bring a lot of sponsorship money. Maybe those buyouts are a little too expensive right now at the moment, especially given the cost cap.
I don't think Red Bull is hunting for money right now. Like, they're not in any. I don't think they need the money from Perez.
No, my question would be, is they buy him out, and we know drivers' salaries are not part of it, but that type of a sponsorship thing, does that then hinder their cost cap? That would be kind of my thought on that, would be, okay, well, if you're spending it on dead money, does that mean you can't spend it on car development? That would be the only angle I think that makes sense in that case.
I think I guess I don't really know how it works if it's a driver who's no longer driving for you, but I know that like driver salary and like top exec salaries, I believe, are not subject to the cost cap. Yeah, I guess it gets a little weird if you're paying a driver that you no longer have need for, but that'd be kind of an interesting experiment. I figured they got to let him finish out the season because, we know Red Bull's pretty ruthless when it comes to, the drivers they put in their seats, but at the same time, he has helped them win a second consecutive constructors title, even though, Max did all the heavy lifting. It would be pretty poor form to Perez if, they said, thanks for helping us win this constructors title. By the way, you're out of a job for the rest of the season.
Oh no, I agree with that. I'm just surprised they don't, day one after Abu Dhabi, that they don't just make the leap and just say, whoops.
We'll have to see.
Yeah. And that could still happen. I mean, this is just what it's announced today. It's always the fun of, you never know really what's set and what isn't.
Driver management.
Any thoughts on Sergio being allowed to come back into the race even after pulling the car into the garage? I have an award for that. So I guess I'll save my thoughts there, but I'll let you guys talk about it here.
It's legal, technically. I mean, he did get back to the garage under his own power, which I guess is kind of the dividing line between, being permanently retired from the race. Is if you can't get back to the garage under your own power, then you are out. And I mean, it was a good strategic call, I guess, by Red Bull to, even though he was a dud and wasn't going to do anything for the rest of the race, to get him out there and serve that penalty. It's definitely quirky, and I would say a way to skirt around that penalty, because honestly, it's not going to hurt him if he's already 43 laps down. I think they really should have said, no, you can't do that, and you have to take the grid penalty in the next race. But I imagine they're going to close up that loophole pretty soon.
My frustration here, which going to go in a different direction, but when was the last time you saw somebody get that kind of penalty carried over? I don't personally remember it, but as we have learned, as they issued a statement, the stewarding is not consistent anywhere we go here. So I get Red Bull trying to avoid the loophole, but anyway, that is my kind of basis of this frustration, is that we're not even sure if that penalty would be applied or not. But F1 stewarding, I've always had an issue with. But it is bizarre, and like Cody said, technically a marshal didn't touch the car, so he got back on his own power, so I guess he can go back out. Bizarre. It's just bizarre. I didn't think we need to sit and look at him sitting in his garage just for as long as we did, but whatever.
Yeah, there was a lot. I want to know what that device was that was over the front of the car, because that thing looked interesting. Whatever it was that was attached to it for a while. But the only part that I think was actually material to the race. Now, look, I don't think that, as good as the McLaren pace was, that either Lando or Oscar were ever going to catch Max. Max could do what he wanted. But when Perez is coming in and there's that virtual safety car, he holds up Lando for 15 seconds while he's trundling his car back in, and Lando's screaming at his pit wall, telling him, can I pass him? I don't know if I can pass him. I don't want a penalty. There's no reason for it. And by the time they sorted it out, the VSC ended anyway. And it cost Lando about maybe 7 to 9 seconds of actual track time. So yeah, I mean, we're talking maybe about a 10-second victory instead of a 19. Big deal. Maybe you can argue that. That's fine. I don't think it affected the outcome of the race, but that's gray. And if Perez is trying to trundle back for that, like there's got to be some sort of a signaling or some way to resolve that. So that was the only frustration on my part, other than looking at the timing screen and all of a sudden watching his name go dark and then light up and say plus 6 laps to the next guy, and then he goes and does a lap, and he's 5 laps down from the next guy. And it reminded me of, and NASCAR used to have this type of rule, Cody, where drivers would come out, they'd run a lap on half a car, and then go back to the garage. And then NASCAR said, you know what, we're not with that. It's not safe to have cars in those conditions. So if your car can't continue after the 5 minutes that you can try to fix it, guess what? You're done. It obviously looks like they're going to fix this loophole. We're not going to probably see this ever again. Thank you, Red Bull, for pointing out the flaw in the machine yet again. Kind of dumb chess, considering I don't know what they actually gain out of it.
One last little bit before we move on to the midfield. We did have another missile in the race. Poor Logan Sargent piled it on in qualifying. We're going to pile it on a little bit more here. Had pretty much an equally poor move trying to pass Valtteri Bottas, and spun him around pretty much the same way. Wrecked both of the races, and yeah, as soon as they go to that shot, you see all the smoke coming up from the tires. Same thing, never going to make that move. Can give Logan Sargent a little bit more of a pass because, he is a rookie. We've been, giving him a lot of passes for being a rookie, but at least that kind of move, it's like, all right, it's your first year. Perez, how long he's been racing, it doesn't get the same pass.
I mean, I would almost be saying, if I was like his advisor, just be clean in the next race. Even if you're slow, just bring the car home, for the love of God, man. Take the 0.25 seconds of extra margin that you need. Because yeah, I think they can accept a slower car that might be on the up and up. They can't accept going into their reserves into parts like they're doing and causing their mechanics these late nights and breaking curfew and almost getting kicked out of the event. That can't continue to happen. It's got to get better, and it's got to get better quick. I'm hoping that like his home, if he comes to Coda in a couple races time, that maybe that can give him a boost. But it does not look good. I can't sugarcoat it any better than that.
It's just unfortunate because there's not like a lot of flashes of speed within all of these mistakes as well. It's just been a little tough across the board, which does pain me to say, but.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen the comparisons to if they could only make Super Formula or make F2 as good as Super Formula, then they could develop drivers better. But
it worked wonders for Lawson.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah.
All right. We will leave our back markers here, and I'm sure they're just happy to have the Japanese Grand Prix in the rearview mirror. So we will move on to the midfield. P12 was Yuki Tsunoda. He made Q3. He did not bring it home in the points. P11, there's that impressive gentleman from New Zealand yet again, Liam Lawson, and the other AlphaTauri outscoring his teammate, even if they don't get points. P10, Pierre Gasly. P9, Esteban Ocon. Got to talk a little bit of Alpine at the end of that race there. P8, Fernando Alonso. P7 was George Russell, who tried to make a one-stop strategy work on a track with high tire degradation. That sounds like a recipe for success, but he comes home in P7. P6, Carlos Sainz. P5 was Lewis Hamilton. Him and his teammate got into it quite a bit this weekend. And P4, Charles Leclerc, and the other Ferrari, the top Ferrari scorer on the day. Lots to talk about in the midfield. It's probably where they should have focused most of the attention of the race. It looked like they did a decent job of that on race direction. Dee, I'll let you go first. What you got?
Yeah, I'll actually start back with Liam Lawson and Yuki Tsunoda. So I think Liam, I believe, kind of got ahead in that first lap, but he got undercut by Tsunoda, but then they let him have the undercut back. And so for those last, it looked like about 5, 6, 7 laps, Tsunoda was in a half a second. They talked about it a bit on the broadcast, that they were coaching him to keep him ahead. I don't know if eventually they just kind of give team orders or not, but he did a decent job. Tsunoda's in half a second, and he never got by, or they never let him by either. So I think just, again, another impressive performance from him, and is another reason why he should probably be in that car next year, but whatever.
Cody, big thoughts on the midfield?
I thought that the action between Hamilton and Russell was some of the best parts of the race. Hamilton was driving with his elbows out this race, man. Like that part where he drove Russell off the track, I was like, ooh, that's kind of like penalty territory maybe. And you figure you don't really see a whole lot of those between drivers on the same team anyway, because, you know, you're arguing with yourself really. So Mercedes is probably sitting there going, no, we don't want to get a penalty for Hamilton. So, but yeah, really good action between the two of them. I really liked at the end when Russell was trying to persuade Mercedes to let him try the Carlos Sainz trick with the DRS, keep them both ahead of him. The team said no, you got to let Hamilton through, and then they tried that anyway. It didn't really matter though, even if Russell had the DRS, because those tires were pretty worn down doing the one stop. Carlos Sainz, made a nice clean pass, but it held him up enough that he didn't get Hamilton by the end. So pretty good racing there. Really like to see Hamilton showing everyone he still got it.
Do you attribute any of that extra action to Toto Wolff not being there? I saw the meme, the Wolf's away, so the Mercedes boys will play.
Maybe that's got a little bit of something to do with it. You don't have your boss breathing down your neck, so you're gonna do whatever you feel like. And I feel like then he comes back, says, "What the hell were you doing?" A little bit of a slap on the wrist, no harm, no foul. They both finished the race, which is more than you can say for last week. But I think made for some good racing, and I hope they let them continue to race each other going forward.
Yeah, I think this is kind of the beginning of things bubbling up between these two, because George was definitely looking out for George. Whether or not he made the right decisions is another thing. I think trying to do a one-stop on a high-deg track was a choice. I also don't think, I think had they let George do, I mean, I think there's a lot of opinions on this, but had they let George pull the quote-unquote signs, if that's what we're calling it, I think Sainz may have ended up getting both of them, especially on this track. It's much easier to overtake in Singapore. I don't think that he had the life in his tires that he did. He would have held up Hamilton. It probably, I just think, would have been a bit of chaos. And so they kind of minimized the damage to Ferrari. But the move on Hamilton was also a little questionable. So I don't know. It was fascinating overall. Some great racing in the middle, other than the one incident. But I think that they're starting to butt heads here. So that'll be interesting to see how that goes, especially if that car gets more competitive.
Yeah, that's a great point. At some point, if you saw what they were willing to do to try to get a race win last week, if that becomes more and more the norm, or they have more opportunities, both of those are guys that feel like they have to do it now for different reasons. George to establish himself, and Lewis to try to hang on as long as he can, because he knows the minute that he's no longer a tenth or two or within that range, Father Time catches up with everybody, and no matter how good you are. So he knows that the pressure's on, and he's going to be wanting to perform. I thought it was interesting, his post-race kind of debrief, his post-race sounds for the first time not in full lockstep with that team. Since he's gone there, he's always been very much faith in the team, thought the direction, and he looks over at the development curve of what the McLarens were able to do and how they were able to do it. And he's just stunned that they're not able to do it at Mercedes, or haven't been able to do it at Mercedes. And I think it comes back to the point we've made on this show many times. Who did the pivot first? Who took the pain first? Well, now you can kind of see what that's going to do. And you have to go through that kind of development curve in order to get there. Now, I think next year might be a different story. They've got a whole new, fresh set of eyes on that car that can do, development from day one. They're not going to have to do the same pivot of concept. But, pressure's going to be on that team to perform and come out the gate strong next year. Otherwise, because the rest of the field just keeps coming at them. So that's definitely something to watch.
I don't really blame him for maybe not having 100% faith in the team at this point, because, last year they fell from being that super dominant top team, but at least they were still second, and they seemed pretty clearly second. Starting in the second half of the year when Ferrari started to falter. But this year, you had Aston Martin appearing to be the second fastest car at the beginning of the season. Now McLaren has rocketed up the order and is now seemingly the second fastest car. You got Ferrari taking a win. So they're pretty well set in the midfield right now, and I don't think that's how he envisioned finishing out his career. I think he wanted to go out more with a bang, kind of like Schumacher did the first time round, where finished second in a close championship and then decided, okay, you know what, that's it, that's done. I went out on a high note, ended up coming back, but I think that's kind of more what Hamilton was going for, and it's not turning out to be that fairy tale ending just yet.
I will say what's kind of fascinating about Mercedes is they have been definitely the most consistent of the Ferraris, the Aston Martins, the McLarens, but I don't know that they've ever felt like the second fastest team this season. So I don't know. It's consistent, but it's just not. It doesn't feel like they're going to threaten Red Bull anytime soon.
Yeah, I mean, definitely something to watch. I mean, it's always. I think you're right when, consistent, good execution, above average execution most weekends. The George call to go on a one stop confused the hell out of me. I didn't know why he thought that was going to work. I don't know if Toto's there. Does he override that and just say, George, what are you doing? But that was definitely Russell's call on the road to do that. So that was kind of strange. You don't usually see Mercedes make a strategy blunder like that very often. But yeah, I mean, it's so tight in that midfield. I had to say, I loved Carlos Sainz's radio. They're trying my move. And they did it poorly to boot. Any other big thoughts on the midfield before we move into the podium?
Just that I barely missed out on getting some good points for our further back spots in our awards game, because I just needed Alonso to lose one spot and Yuki to pick up one spot, and I think I would have had the full 3 spots.
Yep.
But
Oh well, Gasly couldn't get Alonso, and then that led to a little bit of a fit.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
I think that was mostly because the team didn't communicate with him that he'd have to give the spot back, and he was not too pleased at the end there.
What was he expecting though?
He was a few seconds behind. He was catching Ocon, and then they let him around, and then to go get Alonso, and then they told Ocon that he would give this place back, but I don't think they told Gasly that. And so, last corner of the last lap, Gasly finally gave it up and said, "Okay, fine," but he let it go. He took one out on his halo, that's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I heard some of in the post race. Yeah, he was not a happy camper, and people were avoiding being around him for a little bit while he cooled off because it looked like he needed it. All right, I guess we will move into the podium. First time on the podium in his career, in his rookie year, finds Oscar Piastri in P3. I've called him sometimes the Magic P7. This year it looks like it's the Magic P2 for Lando Norris. Yet another second place for him. And in first place, no shocker here, Max Verstappen. The guy could have done pretty much whatever he wanted to, whenever he wanted to, this weekend in the Red Bull, taking the win and the fastest lap, which he did right after he put his set of hard tires on, just to show everybody how much faster he really was. Dee, I'll let you go first on this one. Thoughts on the podium?
It may be just delusion because Max has won so many, but 19 seconds behind, and Norris got held up, and I guess there was a safety car in the middle there. It feels like it's getting better. It feels like they're maybe starting to close a little bit. Again, I think it's just delusion as the longer this goes on. But again, I mean, it was. McLaren were nice clearing away of the Ferraris, of the Mercedes. It was a great race for them, and I think Piastri is still definitely a rookie. He's still definitely not as fast as Norris. I think he will get there, or he'll get much, much closer as he learns. But awesome to see a rookie on the podium. And yeah, Norris, I wish that car was just a bit better, and we'd be in for some fun for sure.
Yeah, it looks pretty clear from the finish times that Piastri isn't quite up to Norris's level just yet. He did finish a good, what was that, 17 seconds behind him. There was one point where Norris came up behind him and Piastri was trying to defend the position, and Norris said, "Look, I'm way faster. You're getting tricked by the dirty air." And they let him through, and he opened up a pretty good gap. But definitely very exciting to see Piastri get a podium in his rookie year. I think he's a very strong teammate for Norris, and within a year they might be on an even playing field and competing for wins, hopefully. 20 seconds is a pretty good gap to first, though. I think we start seeing it shrink down to like 5 seconds, then I'll believe the game is on. But 20 seconds, man, like Max must have had something bugging him about not getting wins for the rest of the season. Was like, and you know what? I'm going to show you guys just how much I can win by pole by a mile, winning the race by a mile, fastest lap. Just barely didn't get all the laps led, so just missing out on that Grand Chelem, but pretty darn close. So hats off to Max this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, just to start with my boys, never thought I would see this year. If you had told me the day we did the testing recap, I was upset. I was angry. I was like, my God, we're going to have another year like 2017 all over again. Lando Norris is punching walls. Will Buxton called them the 10th fastest of all the 10 teams. It was a bad spot. It was not good. And the first few races, they tried to get it together, and my heart absolutely sank in the first race in Bahrain. They're going down the back straight, and Alfa Romeos and Williams cars are passing Lando left and right, and there was nothing he could do about it. He's got his foot flat on the floor, and it didn't matter because the car was just that bad. And I was just like, that was what, testing shoot out alarm bells. That made me feel like, oh man. But to go from that to this, like the shock thing in Great Britain, I think came a lot quicker than anybody thought that they were going to do. And they showed so well there. And then, they had a little hiccup in Belgium and a little hiccup with strategy in Zandvoort. And, there were some things that they still got to iron out. But my God, Mika Hakkinen was right. I didn't even believe him. And I'm the talebearer of the team. So shame on me. But hot damn. Piastri's move at the start, I love the fact that he went for it. He wasn't ever going to pull that off, but he made Max commit, and he almost did a pincer move to allow Lando to go around on the outside. I even said right at the start, I'm like, Lando lead. I didn't even get to say leads because it was gone that quickly on the onboard. And then you just watched Max pull away. 1.5 seconds per lap is what he could do, whatever he wanted to. And the qualifying, when Max pulls his pole lap, I watch a lot of the timing, and I watch the mini sectors, and I think it's so telling because a lot of times, even when a guy will set a purple sector, you see a lot of green and then a purple mini here, a purple mini there. This thing was purple, 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 purple in the first sector, with Norris doing a great job and Piastri doing a great job in that first sector. That's how dominant this car was at that track with that driver in it.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy. So yeah, everybody got some work to do to catch that guy, but at least they were in the arena, I guess.
That pincer move at the start is the best shot of the race, where you've got McLarens on either side of Verstappen and you have the accident unfolding in the background. Definitely the best shot of the race, when there was still a little bit of hope that anyone other than Max was going to win it. But yeah, I've seen that shot like all over, Formula One news, and it's a good one.
Do you have any other thoughts on the podium or Max or anything? Or
I mean, it's just an unbelievable combination, and props them, Red Bull as a whole, for running the constructors. Max, all of the engineers, all the people on the Arrow, Adrian Newey, the whole team, strategy, pit stops. It has been an unstoppable machine. So, yeah, it's just incredible to watch, if a little bit boring.
No, I'll echo it on the boring factor. I wish he was a little more rootable for sometimes, but talent and respect. Again, I tip the cap. That was an amazing performance. All right, I guess as Cody's cat makes an appearance on our video there, we will take a quick break. We'll re-rack. We'll come on back. Cody will pet the cat a little bit. Might feed him in the break, but we'll come back. We'll recap where all this flushes out in the driver and team standings. Then we'll open it up to your takes on what you saw this weekend, the fan email segment. We've got some good submissions there. We'll do our awards. We'll talk predictions. I actually want to talk predictions, so what does that tell you? So come on back. We'll get into all that in just a little bit. All right, welcome back in. This is Season 5, Episode number 32 of the Outlap F1 Podcast. It's our 2023 Japanese GP race review. You've got Andy, and I'm along with both Deanna and Cody tonight. And we just wrapped up talking about the GP itself. Cody, as we are apt to do, if you do the driver standings, I will get you on the teams. Where does everybody flush out after this weekend?
All right. Well, no surprises that Max Verstappen is still P1 in the driver standings, now with a whopping 400 points. He is 177 points ahead of his teammate Sergio Perez in second place. There's only 180 points left up for grabs. So it looks like, barring anything catastrophic happening, that Max Verstappen will be clinching that driver's title during the weekend in Qatar. In third place, we have Lewis Hamilton for Mercedes with 190 points, closing the gap up to Perez just a little bit. Still holding on in fourth place, we have Fernando Alonso for Aston Martin with 174 points. Fifth place, the top of the two Ferrari drivers, Carlos Sainz with 150. And right behind him, his teammate Charles Leclerc with 135 points. Lando Norris continuing to move up in the standings. He's, I think, still in seventh place, but now only 20 points behind Charles Leclerc with 115 points. And tied with him on points is George Russell for Mercedes, also with 115. Oscar Piastri making up good points this weekend. He is in ninth place for McLaren with 57 points and still somehow holding on to 10th place despite not scoring a lot of points lately. Lance Stroll for Aston Martin with 47 points.
All right, so for the teams, the Constructors battle is done. Red Bull Racing Powertrains had clinched the 2023 Constructors World title. They sit on 623 points, a far cry from P2 Mercedes. They check in with 305 points. P3 is Ferrari, 285 points. P4, Aston Martin, check in with 221. Only 49 points now in front of P5 McLaren Mercedes. They come in with 172. P6 is Alpine. They check in with 84. P7 is Williams on 21. P8 is Haas on 12. P9 finds Alfa Romeo on 10 points. And in P10, with those 5 points now, AlphaTauri Honda with those 5 points. All right. So we will now turn it over to your opinion on what you guys thought over the course of the race weekend. It's the fan email segment. Dee, it's nice to have you back, so it is now your time to shine. Take it away.
All right, so starting with Rachel Fleming, she says, "Hi guys, normal service did resume. Max was on another level all weekend. But what an appalling race from his teammate Perez. Managed to DNF twice. I mean, it hardly matters to Red Bull since Max won Constructors on his own, but his hopes of keeping a seat in 2025 are getting smaller all the time. But at least he'll have a seat in 2024, which is more than I can say about Logan Sargent. I know it's great to have an American driver on the grid, but James Vowles and the team look like they're losing their patience now. The reaction to his quality accident was very telling. If Williams want to move forward, I think they may cut their losses here, especially with Felipe Drugovich, Liam Lawson, and even Mick Schumacher on the sidelines." So I know we talked a lot about this, but I guess any thoughts on who the Williams replacement driver should be, if there should be one?
I would say, isn't Felipe Drugovich is in like the Aston Martin junior
Yeah.
program, right?
He is the junior program for Aston Martin. It's a program of one. That's him.
It would be really great for him to get in there and get some experience. I'm not sure. I mean, I for a change actually kind of watched that Formula 2 championship, and he was good. I don't think he was, miles clear of the rest of the field. So I guess I'm not as confident in his ability. Liam Lawson would be great, but he's got, pretty good. I mean, he's not getting that seat right away, but he's still got a pretty good thing being in the Red Bull Racing family. And I think, honestly, I think Mick Schumacher's career is probably done. So I think they should probably stick with him for at least one more year. And I know that's, giving him a lot of benefits of the doubt considering his performances so far this year. But I think he's really just kind of in his own head, and might need some time off, over the winter to refresh and refocus. Fingers crossed that he can start pulling together. But I personally think they're going to stick with him one more season.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the alliances and kind of the way that kind of works and kind of affects who can do what, Red Bull would have to loan Lawson out in a similar manner that they tried to do with Albon, and then they eventually just cut ties with Albon and let him stay at Williams. I don't see them wanting to do that, especially since if that report is true that, hey, he's got a guaranteed seat, you don't want a guy in a different power unit learning different mapping, learning different terminology, only to turn around and have to forget all that. And now you have to learn the Red Bull terminology. And oh, by the way, if it's 2025, it's the last year with Honda. And oh, by the way, next year we're switching to Ford. So it's all going to change yet again. So that would be 4 different power units in 3 years. Or maybe my math is off on that. He would. But that's asking a lot of a kid, even one as talented as Liam Lawson. The Drugovich thing, I think, makes a little more sense. Mercedes power unit versus Mercedes power unit, so I could see that. But I don't know if Aston Martin would, again, want to be able to loan him out. Williams would have to come up with extra money. And, yeah, they're well-funded now, but I don't know if they're that well-funded to start poaching drivers away from other places. I look at the Williams Academy. There's some guys in F2 that if they wanted to bring another one up, but that's an unknown commodity, just like Logan was an unknown commodity. So I don't know what you're gaining there. I know I'm trying to take my American flag off my chest here, but I think the logical move is to actually let Logan have another year. If it starts out bad, you don't give him a big leash. If it starts out bad, it's continuation of this. Find another option. But for right now, I think they're best sticking with what they got.
What about Teo Pocher if he wins the F2 championship?
Well, the question is, what academy is he in?
Ferrari.
Yeah,
Alfa Romeo or something like that. I thought
he might be.
Yeah, so I think
what his car looks like.
I think they're saving him for Alfa Romeo if they decide to ever change that lineup. Although that goes to Audi, so I don't know. But yeah, I think they'll probably stick with him. I wouldn't consider Mick Schumacher because I think you kind of go what the issue is with Sargent right now. Mick Schumacher also had that issue, so I don't see the real benefit of switching him out. And because I can never miss an opportunity to mention him, I think the best option would be to bring in Alex Palou, but whatever. We don't have to. I won't dwell on that any longer. So anyway, moving on. Next up, the formula says, watch the Japanese Grand Prix on demand at 8 a.m. like a normal person. Sorry for the late message. The race has had more retirees than a South Florida subdivision, but the battles between teammates were fun to watch. I don't even know what to say about Checo anymore. I've routinely criticized him, but this weekend was a whole new level of struggle for him. I really do like the guy, but his seat has to be hot, hot, hot. As far as my boys in orange, what a weekend. Oscar continues to impress. These last couple races have me feeling very optimistic. How are you feeling, Andy?
Feeling good, and for the first time in a long time, actually confident. And I'll tell you why. Because there's more good coming. I actually got this, a bit of an exclusive. I backed into this. So occasionally on the national show, I'll just tweet or YouTube those guys. They asked me to call in because they know where my loyalties lie. And it just so happened that on the phone on that show, while I happened to call in, was one journalist, Chris Medland, who also happened to be interviewing, who happened to hear my comment when I said, oh, yeah, there's more good coming. They're not even in the wind tunnel yet. And then Chris goes, I have to interrupt you there. They are in the new wind tunnel for the 2024 car. So that was a bit of breaking news, even to a guy like me. So, yeah, there's more good coming. They're now in that new wind tunnel. They don't have to go to Cologne to develop this car. They're going to take all the good stuff from this year's car and put it into that car. Regulations are the same. They're stable. Driver lineup looks fast. Piastri's coming on the good. Maybe is talented, maybe even more talented than Lando. And we've said Lando Norris is a seminal talent. So look out for these guys next year. I am beyond excited. Let's reel in the bulls. Lasso the bulls. Lasso the bulls.
No.
There you go.
We'll trademark it.
All right. So thank you to everybody who contributed to our fan email segment this week. We appreciate it as always. And again, great stuff from all the contributors. All right. So we will transition into our awards. Cody, I'll let you go first on this one. We'll start with the rubbish. What did we not like about this weekend? Cody, I like your candidates. Cody, you go first, D, and then I'll come up with the last of it.
All right. So I am giving out 2 rubbish awards this weekend, one for Perez and one for Sargent. We already pretty much covered up all of their misdoings this weekend, but yeah, Sargent looked like the rookie that he is, and Perez looked like the rookie he's not. So they both need to get out of this funk that they're in these last few races and pull together, because I would say that they're probably the 2 drivers in the hottest seats right now. I don't want Perez to lose the seat. I've always been a bit of a Perez fan. I'm a little disappointed to see how he's performing lately. I liked it much more at the beginning of the season, when at least he was winning a couple races and keeping things exciting. And Sargent, he's our American representative, so really don't want him to go anywhere. But he's still got a lot to prove. So yeah, my rubbish award is going to the 2 missiles.
Yeah, I think we're all probably going to go in a similar vein here. I'm just specifically, it is Perez on Magnussen. Just watching that is beyond painful. For as experienced as he is, it's just can't be doing that. Just can't be doing that.
Yeah, so mine is going to go out to Red Bull yet again for stretching the rules with that kind of ridiculous Perez. You get to come out, do a lap, and then go back and DNF twice. And the FIA also for letting that happen. We've talked about reading of the sporting regs, and look, it was a legal thing to do. And the FIA is going to close the loophole. Great. Wonderful. Why did it have to have this ridiculous thing happen before somebody takes a look at the damn rule book and goes, I wonder if somebody's going to try to do this. Well, there it was. And yet again, here we are. And once again, Red Bull wins a battle for a useless, meaningless part of the war. I mean, congratulations. You've nuked the entire field this season, and you decide to throw one more bomb on the fire? For what reason? What reason? Why'd you do that? And guess what? You lost your loophole. So good on you for that.
I was buckling in for the rant. That was actually tamer than I was expecting.
I went full nuclear last week. I'm done after that. All right, so we will now flip over and we'll get into the analysis paralysis. I'll lead this one off. This goes out to George Russell. While I admire the gumption and the moxie and the wanting to do for a go-for-it move, there was never any data that told you that thing, that one-stop race on a track that everybody was saying had tire deg, that most engineers were talking 2 or maybe even 3 stops was the way to go. That thing was never going to fly, and it didn't. And he fell like a rock. And he allowed basically Sainz to get the jump on him because of that. He probably was maybe 1 or 2 positions higher. Could have maybe come in 3rd or 4th, not 3rd, but 4th, maybe 5th. But yeah, definitely didn't work there. So George Russell, my analysis paralysis is for you because it wasn't from your pit wall. You did that. D, what's your thought?
100% agree. Don't need to go any further into that one.
Cody, what's your take on analysis paralysis?
I didn't really feel there was a super strong candidate, although now that you're talking about the tire deg thing, I do kind of remember that teams were saying that the tire deg was such that the soft tires were not staying at peak performance over a qualifying lap. So yeah, maybe the one stop really wasn't a great idea. However, I'm going to give this one to Alpine because I thought it was a little goofy to be, pulling switches on your drivers and having to go back and forth and giving places back over 9th and 10th, or I guess potentially 8th and 10th. There's not a lot of points on the table there. All you did was make one of your drivers really pissed off, and whether he was right to be pissed or not, I guess I figured he would have known they were giving that position back. It does seem a little goofy to be making those kind of calls with your drivers fighting for a handful of points. Just take the 3, be happy with it, and move on to the next one.
All right, very good. So now we will move on to the dark horse of the day. This was a tough one for me, especially given how everybody finished. So, Dee, I'll let you go first. What you got for the dark horse on the day?
It doesn't feel like a dark horse, but it's just not going to be driver of the day. So I'm going to give it to Norris. Once again, I guess this is just McLaren as a whole, the dark horse over the course of the season, because never did I think this comeback would be possible. But yeah, Norris, Piastri, I guess in the same vein, pulling a double podium for McLaren.
Cody, what's your thought?
I kind of didn't think there was a really good candidate for dark horse. I think just about everyone finished where we were thinking they were going to finish, at least based on qualifying. So being that he's the only rookie that's really performing to any degree right now, I think I'm going to give this one to Lawson. He did finish ahead of his teammate Yuki Tsunoda yet again. And despite the fact that there's a lot of things that factor into the race that caused that, and that Yuki Tsunoda did out-qualify him, facts still stands that he finished in front of Yuki. So I'm going to give it to Lawson.
Yeah, I kind of said Lawson's as good of a choice as anybody here because, again, this was really kind of a decanting of the normal finishing order, and everybody finished and not, even though there were lots of DNFs, the DNFs really kind of didn't slide into where you would expect them to be, other than maybe Perez. So, yeah, there wasn't a lot of field turmoil here. So, yeah, I'll give it to Liam Lawson because as good as a choice as anybody. And, yeah, good on you, kid. 3rd race in, still doing good. All right, so we will now move into the driver of the day. I have a funny feeling this is a clean sweep here, but Dee, I'll let you go first.
For what feels like the 95th time this season, it's Max Verstappen.
Cody?
It's Max. He finished too far out in front to give it to anyone else.
Yeah, the only mystery I would have about this award is if I tried to engrave it into stone. Max Verstappen going to take this one walking away. Damn, that was impressive, if nothing else. All right, so one last thing to do before we hop on out of here for the night. We need to talk about predictions. Cody's been giving it to me a good chunk of this season. I struck back, and I struck back pretty damn good. I took it 7-3. So, Cody, you got the pole sitter for Max. You got P1 on the podium, and you did get the P9 bonus pick. So, good job there. I managed to nail the times. As bad as I was at Singapore, I was much better here. So, I got the pole sitter. I got the qualifying time within maybe a 10th or two. P1 on the podium. My homer picked Lando comes home P2 on the podium. Fastest lap time, fastest lap driver. And I got the prop bet because Yuki Tsunoda made Q3. So way to go, local kid, for that. All right. Well,
I was particularly impressed with your guess on the qualifying time because I was like, holy crap, you got it within 0.2. We never do that. We're like
I was
10
going to say it. So our average is now 5.5 seconds off, considering last week. So over the course of the last 2 weeks, we're getting better. That's what we're doing. We're trying to we're improving. All right, so I guess that will do it for the Japanese Grand Prix. Any final thoughts before we close this out? Dee, it was nice to see you again. Hope we can make this a more regular thing if we
Yes.
can. Again, we're all going to be. This is the contingent of people that will be at Coda in just a little under a month's time. We got a week off. We got Qatar. And I hope you all like the sprint format because we're about to do it again and then again. So get ready.
I am excited to see a sprint race. I think it's going to be it's going to make the weekend just that much more exciting. I'm not a huge fan of the sprint format overall, but being at the race, it makes it a little different. So I'm excited for that. Excited to see Qatar too because we've only had one race there back in 2021, and that was the only race that season that I didn't watch because I had something else going on. So I've never really seen a race at this track. Be something interesting.
That's because it's supposed to be a MotoGP track. It's not really designed for F1. Oh, Dee, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know that you missed all that much back when we did it in 21, but yeah. I think there was a Alonso podium, and that was the highlight.
Oh, I'll take another one of those, please.
Mm-hmm.
It's the track that looks to me like a dog trying to jump up and try to jump up and get a bone. You see his neck, and you see kind of it's weird. I don't know. I just see shapes. But that may be me doing that when I just look at the track overlays. But anyway, lots of flowy turns, very, very flat. Very, very flat, and will be a night race. So should be back to kind of our normal, I guess, European wake-up times for the race.
I think it's even later in the afternoon.
Yeah, it could be. It could be because it's later.
It's a night race there.
They usually want the sun to go down because no more windstorms. So we'll be back. Cody and I will be on the preview for that next Wednesday, hopefully, and then we'll see who's with us to do the recap of the Qatari Grand Prix. I guess that's what you call it. And then we'll set the stage for Circuit of the Americas and the U.S. Grand Prix, which I am beyond excited for, especially given my team's turn of form. I just think something good's going to happen. Positive affirmations. That's where I'm going. All right, folks. Any final thoughts before I hop on out?
Nope. I think we covered just about everything.
All right. So for everybody connected to the show, as always, may all your laps be fast.